Think you can manage it?
Today we're at the Iredale camp. It's a beautiful fall day and we are ready to give the camp back.
What if one of the most beloved renovation shows on television was never supposed to exist at all? Maine Cabin Masters was not created by media executives searching for the next hit. It was built around a contractor who had no website, no Instagram, no Facebook, and absolutely no interest in becoming famous. Even more shocking, the show nearly disappeared when DIY Network was transformed into Magnolia Network, and many insiders believed it had already been marked for cancellation. If Chip and Joanna Gaines had made a different decision in 2022, Chase Morrill and his crew might have vanished from television forever. This is the untold story behind Maine Cabin Masters, the contractor who never wanted television. Chase Morrill was born on Christmas Day in 1977 in Augusta, Maine, and nothing about his early life suggested that millions of viewers would one day know his name. He came from a family where building and repairing things was simply part of everyday life. His grandmother handled plumbing, his grandfather handled electrical work, and the expectation was clear: if something broke, you fixed it yourself rather than replacing it. After attending the College of the Atlantic in Bar Harbor, Chase earned a degree in community planning. His future crew members were taking similarly ordinary paths. Ryan Eldridge studied English. Matt Dix pursued a degree connected to the ski industry, and none of them were planning careers in entertainment. They were simply friends from central Maine who enjoyed building things with their hands. When Chase returned home, he started a contracting business called Kennebec Property Services, better known as KBEC Property Services. The company operated almost entirely through word of mouth. There was no polished online presence, no marketing campaign, and no attempt to create a public brand. Clients found him because neighbors recommended him, because his wife knew people in the community, or because someone had heard that Chase was the guy who could save an old camp that everyone else thought was beyond repair. Then a friend made a phone call that changed everything. A production company was searching for a crew that specialized in restoring old Maine camps and cabins. They did not want television personalities. They wanted people who understood how to salvage original materials, preserve the character of aging buildings, and respect the history attached to them. Chase applied almost casually, with no strategic plan and no expectation that anything significant would come from it. The pilot was filmed in Vassalboro, Maine, at a rundown pondside camp. The concept was simple, but powerful. Restore neglected family cabins without erasing the memories embedded in them. The crew came together naturally. Ashley Morrill, Chase's sister, brought her background in media and graphic design to the interior design work. Ryan Eldridge became the steady voice of reason on job sites that were often chaotic. Childhood friends Jared Jedi Baker and Matt Dix completed the team, bringing years of shared history that could not be manufactured for television. DIY Network picked up the pilot, and Maine Cabin Masters premiered on January 20th, 2017. What happened next surprised everyone involved. The show became DIY Network's highest-rated program during its first 3 seasons, drawing roughly 3.5 million weekly viewers by season 3. The reason was not flashy renovations or dramatic confrontations. Viewers connected with the authenticity of the crew. Chase behaved the same way in interviews that he did while crawling under a cabin installing a water heater. Ashley's frustrations and triumphs felt genuine. The crew argued like siblings, because in many ways they were siblings. Most importantly, the cabins were not investment properties. They were family heirlooms that had been neglected because life had become complicated. Maine Cabin Masters was never really about increasing property values. It was about rescuing places that still mattered to the people who owned them. That emotional core became the foundation of one of the most loyal audiences in renovation television, the cancellation that almost happened. For 5 successful seasons, Maine Cabin Masters thrived on DIY Network. Ratings remained strong, the fan base continued growing, and the show appeared secure. Then a corporate decision made far from Maine threatened to end everything. Chip and Joanna Gaines were building Magnolia Network in partnership with Discovery, and the plan involved completely rebranding DIY Network. When the transition was announced, many existing DIY shows were expected to disappear. Magnolia had a carefully curated aesthetic associated with warm, aspirational farmhouse design, and a group of bearded Mainers restoring weathered deer camps did not seem like an obvious fit. Early reports about the Magnolia lineup did not include Maine Cabin Masters. Fans noticed immediately. Online communities began speculating that the show had effectively been cancelled, even if no official announcement had been made. The fear was understandable. Corporate rebrands often wipe out successful programs simply because they no longer match the new brand identity. Ratings do not always save a show when executives are trying to reshape an entire network. Then came the surprising decision. Magnolia chose to keep Maine Cabin Masters. Whether the choice was driven by the show's exceptional ratings, its unusually devoted audience, or the recognition that its authenticity could not be replicated, the result was the same. Chase and the crew survived the network transition that many viewers assumed would end their television careers. The irony was impossible to ignore. A show built around saving things that other people had given up on had just been saved itself. The transition did more than preserve the series. It expanded its influence. The small town of Manchester, Maine, where much of the crew lived and worked, began experiencing noticeable economic changes. Visitors drove hours to see the town associated with the show. New businesses opened, restaurants benefited from increased tourism, and Manchester started to feel the same kind of television-driven transformation that Waco, Texas, experienced after Fixer Upper became a phenomenon. Chase Morrill and the Maine Cabin Masters crew could have taken the easy route once the show became a success. With a growing fan base and strong merchandise sales, they had an opportunity to simply capitalize on their television popularity. Instead, they chose to invest directly in the community that had supported them from the beginning, turning their success into something much larger than a TV brand. In 2019, Chase noticed a property on Western Avenue in Manchester, Maine, with a for sale sign posted out front. The home belonged to the Daggett family, whose cabin had been featured in Season 1. Episode 1, the very first renovation ever shown on Maine Cabin Masters. For longtime viewers, the connection was significant. Chase purchased the historic homestead, which dated back to the 1850s and had originally been built on the site of an old tavern, where the original hitching post still remained. The crew approached the renovation exactly as they would one of the cabins featured on the show. They opened up the interior space, updated the structure for modern use, and carefully preserved the building's historic character, rather than stripping away its past. The finished property became the Quebec Cabin Company, which officially opened in February 2020. The shop offered Maine-made crafts, tools, local artisan products, and Maine Cabin Masters merchandise, giving visitors a chance to experience the show's rustic Maine aesthetic in person. Behind the retail shop, the crew developed the Woodshed, a restaurant, bar, and event venue that hosts live music and operates year-round. What began as a television production had evolved into a genuine local business ecosystem, one rooted in craftsmanship, community, preservation, and the same small-town Maine values that made Maine Cabin Masters resonate with millions of viewers in the first place, building an empire beyond the cabins. As Maine Cabin Masters became one of Magnolia Network's most recognizable shows, the crew's success began opening doors beyond television. Rather than drifting away from the show's rustic identity, each member expanded their own creative and professional projects while staying closely connected to the Maine camp culture that made the series so popular in the first place. Ashley Morrill was among the first to turn her on-screen work into a standalone business. For years, viewers had admired the custom interior touches she created for cabin renovations: pillows, artwork, prints, signs, and decorative pieces inspired by the forests, lakes, and wildlife of Maine. In May 2023, Ashley transformed that experience into Rustic County, a women-owned home decor brand built around her original artwork. The collection included throw pillow covers, tea towels, ornaments, serving trays, and other home goods designed to capture the warm, nostalgic feeling of a Maine camp. The response from fans was immediate and enthusiastic. People who had spent years watching dramatic cabin reveals could now bring a small piece of that same aesthetic into their own homes. Ashley later described the reaction as overwhelming, proving that viewers were emotionally invested not only in the renovations themselves, but also in the creative vision behind them. Then came the most surprising expansion of all. In 2023, Chase Morrill purchased a property in a remote village in the Molise region of Italy for approximately $97,000. The structure was essentially a ruin, a former animal stable in a rural community struggling with population decline and abandoned historic buildings. Chase recognized a problem that felt strikingly familiar. Just as many Maine camps had been left to deteriorate when families moved away or could no longer maintain them, numerous Italian villages were watching their heritage structures slowly crumble because there were simply not enough residents left to save them. He brought his wife Sarah, their 4 teenage children, and the entire crew to Italy. The project became the 6-episode spin-off Maine Cabin Masters, Building Italy, which premiered on Magnolia Network on June 17, 2024. The challenges were were unlike anything the crew had faced in Maine. They struggled to find tools, navigated language barriers, worked under Italian seismic regulations that required local contractors to oversee structural elements, and attempted to adapt their rustic Maine design sensibilities to stone walls, plaster, and centuries-old European architecture. The spin-off produced mixed reactions. Some viewers enjoyed seeing the crew outside their comfort zone and appreciated the inclusion of Chase's children in the project. Others felt that the series had lost the very thing that made Maine Cabin Masters special, Maine itself. The pine forests, frozen lakes, weathered camps, and grey northern light were not just a backdrop. They were part of the show's identity. Without them, some fans felt they were watching a different program entirely. Chase later made it clear that Maine remained the heart of the franchise. The Italian property became a private family vacation home after filming ended, and no additional international seasons were announced. In hindsight, Building Italy revealed something important. The audience's connection to Maine Cabin Masters was not infinitely portable. The crew mattered, but the landscape and culture of Maine mattered just as much. That lesson would become especially significant when the show faced a much more personal challenge: the tragedy that changed everything. On February 1st, 2025, tragedy struck the Maine Cabin Masters family when Jenna Dix died unexpectedly at Maine Medical Center in Portland at the age of 48. The news deeply affected not only her husband, Matt "Dixie" Dix, but also the entire group that viewers had come to know through the show. Dixie has been one of the series' core cast members and a lifelong friend of Chase Morrill and Ryan Eldridge, making Jenna's passing a personal loss for the entire Maine Cabin Masters community. Jenna was far more than someone connected to the show through marriage. She had been part of the crew's extended circle of family and friends for decades. She and Dixie met in 2000 and married the following year, building a life rooted in the same Maine camp culture that has always been central to the show's identity. Professionally, Jenna dedicated herself to healthcare. She became a registered nurse, earned a master's degree, and eventually worked as a nurse practitioner, earning the respect of colleagues and patients alike. Her obituary painted a picture of someone who found joy in simple but meaningful moments, spending time at camp, listening to music, snowmobiling through the Maine woods, and sharing quiet mornings with family and friends. A few days after her passing, Magnolia Network confirmed the heartbreaking news through the show's official Instagram account. The statement emphasized that Jenna was not only Dixie's beloved wife, but also someone deeply woven into the friendships and relationships that existed long before television cameras ever arrived. Ryan Eldridge's tribute revealed how interconnected these families truly were. He explained that he and Jenna shared the same birthday, 2 years apart, and that their parents had been close friends. He had witnessed the night Jenna and Dixie first met. That detail mattered because it exposed something many viewers sensed, but may not have fully understood. Maine Cabin Masters was never a manufactured television cast. These people had grown up together. They had attended each other's weddings, spent weekends at camp together, raised families alongside one another, and shared decades of ordinary life that had nothing to do with ratings or production schedules. Jenna's death was therefore not a dramatic storyline inserted into a reality show. It was a genuine loss suffered by a real community. The crew continued filming, but the tragedy changed the emotional context surrounding the series. Fans who had always appreciated the show's authenticity were reminded that the relationships on screen were not performances. The grief was real because the friendships were real. Around the same time, viewers were also aware that another long-standing crew member, Lance Gatcombe, had quietly disappeared from the series after season 5 in 2020 without any official explanation from the production team. While fans speculated about the reasons, the show chose not to turn the departure into public drama. Taken together, these events reinforced the sense that Maine Cabin Masters operated differently from many reality television franchises. The production consistently protected the private lives of its cast members, rather than exploiting personal difficulties for entertainment value. That decision may have cost the show opportunities for sensational publicity, but it strengthened the trust between the crew and their audience. As season 12 approached its conclusion, however, an even larger question loomed over the future of the series. The future of Maine Cabin Masters. Season 12 premiered on December 29th, 2025, and ran through March 9th, 2026. The season featured many of the projects that longtime fans love most: a storm-damaged cabin in Monmouth, a ski shack renovation for a local high school, and a generational camp restoration for a 92-year-old homeowner homeowner on a private island deep in the North Maine woods. The episodes felt like a return to the show's strongest formula: properties with emotional history, owners with compelling reasons to save them, and a crew capable of preserving both the structures and the memories attached to them. When the finale aired, however, Magnolia Network had not announced a season 13 renewal. Industry trackers listed the show's status as fate to be determined. It was neither officially cancelled nor officially renewed, leaving it suspended in the uncertain space where many long-running television series quietly disappear. For fans, this uncertainty felt different from the Magnolia transition in 2022. That earlier crisis had been tied to a corporate rebrand. This time, the question was whether a show entering its 13th season could continue indefinitely in an industry where even successful programs eventually come to an end. Then came the answer viewers had been waiting for. Magnolia Network confirmed season 13, with a premiere date of May 25, 2026. The opening episode, Restoring an Island Legacy, would follow Chase, Ashley, Ryan, Jedi, and Dixie as they tackled a lakeside cabin accessible only by water, helping a homeowner honor the memory of her late husband while bringing the property back to life. The confirmation meant that the original core crew remained intact nearly a decade after the show began. Yet the larger significance of Maine Cabin Masters goes beyond renewal announcements. What Chase Morrill has built is not merely a successful renovation series, it is a community anchored in the idea of preservation. The KBEC Cabin Company, the Woodshed, Ashley's Rustic County brand, and the crew's podcast and live events are all extensions of the same underlying mission: saving places that still hold meaning for the people connected to them. Most renovation shows focus on transformation. A damaged property enters the episode, a beautiful property exits, and the entertainment comes from watching the makeover unfold. Maine Cabin Masters has always focused on why the property was damaged in the first place. A family stopped visiting after grandparents died. Siblings moved to different states. Financial pressures made maintenance impossible. Memories became painful, and the cabin was gradually abandoned. The crew's work is therefore less about construction than about reconnection. They help families reclaim places they thought they had lost forever. That is why the audience has remained remarkably loyal through network changes, cast departures, personal tragedy, and years of television industry uncertainty. Viewers are not simply watching cabinets being installed and walls being painted. They are watching people fight against the quiet disappearance of family history. Whether Maine Cabin Masters continues for several more seasons or eventually reaches a natural conclusion, its impact is already secure. A contractor with no social media presence took a chance on a television pilot out of simple curiosity. In the process, he helped revitalize a Maine town, created lasting local businesses, and built one of the most authentic communities in renovation television. The cabins matter, but they were never the whole story. The real achievement is the network of friendships, families, businesses, and viewers who came to believe that some things are worth saving, even when the rest of the world has moved on. Maine Cabin Masters has now survived corporate upheaval, personal heartbreak, creative experiments, and repeated questions about whether its journey is finally ending. Through it all, Chase Morrill and his crew have continued doing the same thing they did before television ever entered their lives: showing up for the work, showing up for each other, and showing up for families who refuse to let their memories disappear. That may be the real reason the show keeps surviving when so many other renovation programs fade away. But what do you think? Was Magnolia Network's decision the only reason Maine Cabin Masters is still alive today? Leave your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories behind television's most fascinating shows.